When we think about learning English, many learners often focus too much on complicated grammar rules or advanced vocabulary. But what truly builds confidence in speaking is the ability to talk about everyday things, and nothing is more common than your daily routine.
Exactly. Because your routine is something you live every single day, it's already in your mind and part of your life, which makes it the perfect starting point for speaking English without translating word by word from your native language.
And when you can talk about your daily routine fluently, it gives you a powerful foundation for real conversations. Because whether you're talking to a teacher, a friend, or a stranger, daily activities like waking up, commuting, or having lunch are always safe and relatable topics.
That's right. And more than just talking, being able to express these everyday things in English allows your brain to start thinking in English too, because you're connecting language directly to your actions, feelings, and habits without going through your first language all the time.
Let me put it this way. If you can describe your morning, afternoon, and evening in English using natural phrases and expressions, you're already training your mind to speak automatically. And that's how fluency begins, with small, consistent steps tied to your real life.
And the great thing about this topic is that it's flexible. Whether you're a beginner just learning to say, I wake up at 7 a.m., or an intermediate learner who wants to describe how your morning coffee helps you feel energized before work, there's always room to grow.
Plus, when you practice this kind of language, you're not only improving your vocabulary and sentence structure, but you're also building confidence because you're talking about what you know best, your own life. And there's nothing more comfortable or authentic than that.
That's the key word, authenticity. Daily routine conversations help you sound natural, and they prepare you for real-life communication. Because when you travel, work with international teams, or make friends from other countries, most conversations start with the basics. What do you do in the morning? How's your day? Or what are your plans tonight?
So in this episode, we're going to walk through every part of a typical day, from waking up to going to sleep, and we'll show you how to describe your activities in English using clear, everyday expressions that you can start using right away in your own life.
We'll also give you examples, pronunciation tips, and small cultural notes. So by the end of this journey, you'll feel much more confident not just remembering English, but actually using it to describe your real daily life in your own voice.
All right, let's begin this step-by-step tour of a typical day and show you how you can turn ordinary moments into powerful English practice one phrase at a time. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most important part of the day, the morning routine. Because how you start your day often shapes your energy, mindset, and productivity. And it's a great opportunity to use English phrases related to waking up, getting ready, and planning ahead.
A simple way to begin is by saying something like, I usually wake up at 6:30 in the morning, which not only introduces a time-related phrase, but also shows your habits using the word usually, a common adverb of frequency in English.
Right after waking up, most people have a few typical activities, so you can add phrases like, I get out of bed slowly, I stretch for a few minutes, or I check my phone before heading to the bathroom, all of which sound natural and personal.
Then we move into the hygiene routine. So you can say, I brush my teeth, I take a quick shower, I wash my face, or I put on some deodorant. And the key is not just knowing the vocabulary, but being able to say the entire sentence smoothly and with confidence.
Getting dressed is another common step, and learners often ask how to express it. So you can say, I pick out my clothes the night before, or I usually wear something casual unless I have a meeting. And remember that verbs like put on, get dressed, or change into are all useful here.
Don't forget breakfast, a very common and easy topic, where you can say, I usually have a cup of coffee and some toast, or if I have time, I make eggs or oatmeal, which introduces food vocabulary and the idea of routines based on time and mood.
And to wrap up the morning section, you can describe how you leave home with expressions like I grab my bag, I check if I have my keys and phone, and I leave the house around 8 a.m., all of which are helpful and realistic for daily conversations.
Now, let's talk about commuting. Whether you drive, ride a motorbike, take the bus, train, or walk to your destination, because this part of the day is rich with action verbs and time expressions.
A good way to begin is, I usually leave the house around 8, followed by, it takes me about 30 minutes to get to work, or the traffic is always heavy in the morning, which shows your routine as well as your feelings about it.
If you're taking public transport, you can say, I wait at the bus stop for about 10 minutes. The subway is usually crowded. Or, I listen to music or a podcast during my ride. And these phrases naturally combine activities and habits.
For people who drive, you can say, I drive to work while listening to the news. Or, I try to leave early to avoid traffic. And it's useful to use connectors like while and so that to make your sentences longer and more interesting.
Sometimes the commute includes small interactions, so you might say, I greet the security guard when I arrive, or I meet a colleague at the entrance, which adds social and workplace vocabulary to your routine.
Once you arrive at work or school, you can describe your transition into your professional or academic mindset with phrases like, I usually turn on my computer and check emails, or I review my schedule to plan my tasks for the day.
Adding a bit of emotion or commentary makes your routine more natural, like saying, I always need a second cup of coffee before I can concentrate, or Monday mornings are always the hardest for me to get started.
And when come the meetings or classes, where you might say, I attend a daily team meeting at 9, I take notes during the lecture, or I give updates about my current projects, all of which are valuable expressions in a work or school context.
If you're working on a computer, you can say, I spend most of my morning replying to emails, I write reports, or I prepare presentations. And if you're studying, you might say, I do reading assignments, or I study with classmates in the library.
When it comes to improving your English speaking skills in a work setting, one of the most effective strategies that often gets overlooked is the consistent use of real-life practice scenarios, what we call role-playing, because these controlled but realistic conversations allow you to rehearse your responses, vocabulary, tone, and body language in a safe environment before facing the real pressure of an actual workplace conversation.
That's a very important point, because one of the biggest reasons people feel stressed when they speak English at work is simply because they don't know what's going to happen in the conversation. They're afraid of unexpected questions, of not finding the right words, or of misunderstanding someone. And practicing real-life situations through role-play gives you a chance to prepare for the most common interactions you're likely to face, which greatly reduces that anxiety.
Think about your daily routines at work. Maybe you have to join meetings, answer emails, give updates to your manager, or talk with clients. And each of these situations can be broken down into specific patterns of language that you can prepare for. And when you use role-playing, either with a language partner, tutor, or even just by yourself in front of a mirror, you give yourself the opportunity to internalize the structure and flow of these conversations before they happen.
Exactly. And the beauty of role-playing is that it doesn't need to be complicated or time-consuming. You can set aside just 10 or 15 minutes each day to practice one type of conversation, such as giving a project update or participating in a team discussion. And the key is to focus not only on the vocabulary, but also on how you start the conversation, how you transition between points, how you clarify things politely, and how you end the discussion confidently.
So the takeaway here is simple. Build a small but powerful bank of phrases you can rely on and use them repeatedly until they feel like second nature. Because when you don't have to search for words, your confidence increases and your stress naturally decreases. One of the biggest mistakes that many English learners make, especially in a professional environment, is assuming that all their practice must happen live during real work meetings or conversations. But the truth is that the most powerful learning often happens in a safe, low-pressure environment where you can make mistakes freely and learn from them without judgment or consequences.
Exactly. And this is why it's so important to intentionally create a safe space for practice, whether that's practicing with a trusted colleague who also wants to improve, recording yourself speaking and listening back to identify areas for growth, or even talking to yourself out loud to simulate real situations. It might feel awkward at first, but it's incredibly effective.
One technique that works really well for professionals is role-playing, common work scenarios. Imagine you're about to have a performance review or a project briefing. Then sit down and rehearse what you might say, how you would respond to questions, or how you would explain your ideas. And in doing so, you train your brain to think in English within familiar contexts.
And if you want to take it a step further, try recording your practice sessions, not for perfection, but for reflection. Because hearing your own voice, your sentence structures, and your tone can help you notice what's working and what needs improvement. And over time, you'll see real progress in clarity and fluency.
What's crucial here is psychological safety, the feeling that it's okay to stumble, forget a word, or get stuck. Because in these practice spaces, mistakes are not failures. They are signs of effort and growth. And the more you allow yourself to speak without fear of judgment, the more natural English will become in your mind.
This is also why joining a speaking group, a small community, or even having a speaking partner online can make a huge difference. Because when you surround yourself with people who are also learning, you realize that everyone struggles at some point. And that shared experience removes the shame and pressure that often stops people from speaking up.
The bottom line is this: if you wait until you're ready or perfect to start speaking English at work, you might never speak. But if you build a practice habit in a space where you feel comfortable making mistakes, you'll build the courage and skill to eventually speak up with confidence when it really matters.
One of the most strategic ways to reduce stress when speaking English at work is to build a personalized library of key phrases, expressions, sentences, and transitions that are directly relevant to the tasks, conversations, and responsibilities you encounter in your specific role or industry.
That's right, because while general English is important, it's far more efficient and much more calming to master the language you'll actually use day to day, such as phrases to open meetings, explain project updates, clarify misunderstandings, ask for input, or summarize decisions.
For example, if you work in project management, you might frequently say things like, "Let's align on next steps," or "Can we circle back to this point after the discussion?" And if you memorize these kinds of expressions and practice using them naturally, they become your communication safety net during real meetings.
And this isn't about memorizing a script or sounding robotic. It's about creating fluency within your own context so that you're not inventing new sentences from scratch every time you need to speak, but instead drawing from a bank of phrases you already feel comfortable and confident using.
The same goes for handling difficult conversations at work. Having reliable expressions like, "I see your point, but I'd like to suggest an alternative," or "Let's explore another option that might meet both our needs," can help you sound respectful and professional even when emotions are high or pressure is on.
And let's not forget how important tone and structure are. Sometimes the difference between sounding unsure and sounding confident is simply a matter of choosing the right words and saying them with purpose. And when those words are familiar, practiced, and already part of your toolbox, your stress levels drop dramatically.
This is why I often recommend that professionals create a personal phrasebook, a digital note, or a physical notebook, where you write down useful expressions you hear, phrases you practice, and sentences that you want to use more fluently, so that over time, you're building a personalized English resource tailored to your own job.
And with repetition, these phrases become second nature. You'll no longer need to translate in your head or pause to search for the right words, because you've already rehearsed them enough times that they flow naturally. giving you more room to focus on your message rather than your language.
Ultimately, when you focus on learning what's useful to you, rather than trying to master everything in the English language, you give yourself the best chance of speaking clearly, professionally, and without unnecessary stress at work.
It's undeniable that nervousness is a natural reaction when speaking a second language, especially in a professional environment where stakes feel high. But the key to managing this anxiety lies not only in language skills, but in how well you prepare and the mindset you cultivate before and during those moments of speaking.
Absolutely. Preparation is the foundation of confidence, because when you enter a meeting or a conversation, knowing your topic well and anticipating potential questions or challenges, you reduce uncertainty, which directly lowers your stress and helps you focus on communication rather than scrambling for words.
And beyond preparation, adopting a positive and patient mindset towards yourself is equally important. Instead of expecting perfection or fearing mistakes, try to view every speaking opportunity as a chance to practice and improve, reminding yourself that even native speakers occasionally stumble or need time to find the right phrase.
One practical approach to shifting your mindset is through visualization. Before a meeting or presentation, take a few moments to imagine yourself speaking clearly, calmly, and effectively, which primes your brain for success and reduces the fight or flight response that often accompanies stress.
Moreover, focusing on breathing techniques can help regulate physical symptoms of nervousness, such as rapid heartbeat or shaky voice. Simple, slow breaths before and during speaking allow your body to relax and your mind to stay clear and concentrated on your message.
It's also useful to remind yourself that listeners generally appreciate effort and are patient when someone is speaking in a non-native language. So this understanding should alleviate pressure and encourage you to express your ideas without self-judgment.
And if you find your mind blanking or words escaping you, don't panic. Use fillers like "let me think for a moment" or "that's an interesting question," which give you a moment to collect your thoughts without awkward silence or rushing, maintaining your composure.
Building this combination of thorough preparation and compassionate mindset over time will transform your approach to speaking English at work, making it less of a source of stress and more of an opportunity for connection, influence, and professional growth.
One crucial aspect that completes the journey of speaking English confidently and without stress at work is embracing continuous improvement, which means regularly reflecting on your speaking experiences, identifying areas for growth, and actively seeking constructive feedback from trusted colleagues or mentors.
Indeed, continuous learning is not only about studying grammar or vocabulary, but also about observing how you perform in real conversations, noting what went well and what caused hesitation or misunderstanding, and then setting small, specific goals to address those challenges in future interactions.
Seeking feedback can initially feel intimidating, especially when it involves correction, but it is one of the most valuable tools for progress because external perspectives often highlight blind spots we don't notice ourselves, helping us refine pronunciation, tone, or phrasing in ways that make our communication clearer and more professional.
And when you receive feedback, it's essential to listen openly without defensiveness, asking for examples or suggestions when needed, and then thoughtfully incorporating those insights into your practice routine, whether through role-playing, journaling, or targeted language exercises.
Another effective strategy is to record yourself speaking in work-related scenarios, which allows you to objectively evaluate your fluency, coherence, and use of phrases, and gradually adjust your delivery to sound more natural and confident over time.
Remember, improvement is a gradual process, and consistency matters more than perfection. Small, steady steps taken daily create lasting change. So even short practice sessions or mini goals focused on one aspect of speaking can accumulate into substantial gains.
Finally, maintaining a growth mindset, Believing that your ability to communicate in English at work will get better with effort and time fosters resilience against setbacks and keeps you motivated to keep practicing, speaking, and learning, transforming stress into excitement and opportunity.
With this perspective, supported by preparation, personalized phrases, mindset management, and feedback, you build a sustainable habit of effective English communication at work, enabling you to contribute confidently, build relationships, and advance professionally without the burden of unnecessary stress.